Hey everyone, and welcome to another GTA Online Chop Shop DLC video here on the channel. In this one, I'm going to be talking all about the new drift mechanics, the vehicles, the tuning, the new drift races, and some tips and tricks to help you out along the way. So drift tuning was added for 8 vehicles. I'm not sure if there are any in the drift feed that will be eligible for drift tuning, but so far there are 8. If you want to view the 8 vehicles that you can turn into drift cars, there is a laptop that you can visit in the car meet to check them. And those vehicles are the Fathom FR36, the Drift Yosemite, the Drift Tampa, Remus, Fudo GTX, Euros, Gesture RR, and the ZR350. Before you equip the drift tuning, it's recommended that you fully upgrade the vehicle's performance. The game says that the performance mods won't apply when you put on drift tuning, but I've heard some talk in the community that says that might not be the case. And either way, if you decide to uninstall the drift tuning, then the performance mods will be reapplied anyway, so it's not like you're losing out by upgrading it first. Unless you're really short on cash. I should also mention that, just like with HSW, it has to be installed at the car meet. But once you have the drift tuning on, that's really all you need to get started. As far as the drift mechanics themselves, it takes some getting used to. It's really all about speed control and knowing how much you can turn the car before you spin out or lose all of your forward momentum. You don't want to be holding down the accelerator the entire time while in a drift. Instead, what you want to be doing is kind of do small taps with short holds before letting up. And while you control your speed, you'll also obviously be steering the vehicle with the left analog stick, making constant corrections to your drift angle. The handbrake is also very useful, especially in situations where you miscalculate how long you can hold your current drift angle for. By tapping and holding the handbrake for just about half a second, that will allow you to continue going in a straight line at whatever angle you pressed it at. But keep in mind, if you overdo it, you will lose your speed. That's why I suggest it for only like half a second, hold it down for. And also, if you do it in too much rapid succession, then you'll also kill your momentum. The way I like to drift is I pretty much only use the gas and handbrake. Some people will suggest using the regular brakes, but I kind of find it easier just to control your speed by letting off the gas when you need to instead of pressing the brakes. So if I ever need to make a correction, I'll just let off the gas or hit the handbrake. Then in that moment, I'll adjust my steering to compensate before going back to the gas or handbrake again. And all of this happens within a matter of a second. It's just my thought process slowed down to help you understand it a bit better. The way the drift races work is kind of the same way as some of the old Need for Speed games like Underground 2 if you've ever played that, specifically the drift events in them. When you drift, you start to gather points and build up a multiplier, and each time you fill the multiplier bar, it will increase by 0.5 until the maximum multiplier, which is 5 times, to where if you hold the drift, you'll get 5 times whatever score you built up in that time when the drift ends. There's also green optional drift areas on each track. These are harder areas to drift in, but your points and multiplier will increase at a faster rate when drifting in those zones. So it's up to you if you want to tackle that obstacle. If you already have a 5 times multiplier and are holding on to it, it's a lot more risk than reward because you're already at the max multiplier, so you're not going to get a benefit there. And you could easily crash, lose both the multiplier and your points in those areas. As compared to if you're still building the multiplier, then it's obviously a no-brainer to enter them. If you do crash, there are 2 levels of crash that I've noticed. A light crash that doesn't kill all of your momentum will make you lose your current multiplier level. So if you're at 5 times, for example, you'll go to 4.5 times and have to build up that last one. As long as you don't end the drift by stopping the drift for a few seconds, you can keep adding on to your score, so this isn't the end of the world. However, if you have a hard crash into a wall, specifically with the front of your vehicle, you will lose all of your score and your multiplier, and the drift will fail. Which is an absolute killer, and a lot of the time will completely eliminate your chances of winning just from one mistake if you're not careful. And in the gameplay, you're seeing a perfect run that I had completely wiped out from hitting this precision drift pillar. I lost like 147,000 points. Speaking of which, the blue light up pillars around each track will give you 1,000 points if you manage to just barely drift around them. It's very risky but rewarding if done correctly. At the end of the race, extra points are awarded to those who finish quicker, so if you finish the race first ahead of everyone else, you get the most placement points there, and so on and so forth, and these are just extra points added on top of your final drift score. So while finishing the race fast isn't all that important, there is somewhat of an incentive to finish quicker than your opponents. And now I want to give you some pointers when it comes to these races and just drifting in general. The first one is that there is no shame in cashing out on your drift. As far as I can tell, there's no extra bonus you get for holding a drift the entire race up until the end. So holding the 25,000 points, for example, under a 5 times multiplier throughout the whole race is only really increasing your chances of losing if you make one mistake and crash. Especially if that mistake is made at the very end of the race, there is no way you're going to be able to come back and get enough points to win. So instead, don't feel bad to just exit a drift and let the points cash in before starting up another multiplier. This next tip kind of goes along with what I said earlier, but use green zones in a smart way. If you already have a 5 times multiplier and a lot of points, is it really worth the risk to go through there just for the increased point gain? Maybe if you're really confident, but most of the time, probably not. Alternatively, to bring the previous strat that I went over into this, you can cash out a 5x multiplier drift before you get to a green zone so that you can quickly earn your multiplier again by using the green zone. Another common question is, what's the best car for drifting? A lot of people have said that the Drift Tampa is the easiest one to drift with, and after using it myself, I can say that, yeah, it's definitely good at drifting, but would I say it's the best? It's really up to the player, in my opinion. All of the cars pretty much handle nearly the same with the drift handling. The only difference being the size of the car. The Drift Tampa is a pretty long vehicle, so I feel like that's what makes it easier to avoid spinning out. But I don't feel like in any way that I perform much better using the Drift Tampa than I could with like the FR36, for instance. As long as you get the mechanics down, I feel like you could do good with any of the drift cars. Anyways, that is going to wrap up this video. I gotta say, the drifting mechanics kind of surprised me. They are actually pretty well done. Not only in the way the races and mechanics in general are designed, but it's just fun. Like, drifting is just fun. If I had to say one thing that I wish was different, I think I almost would prefer it if the multiplier instead accumulated how fast you get points. So the longer you hold the drift for, the faster you end up building points if you keep holding that same drift at the max multiplier, because that would really award players who can keep the drift going the entire time. But that's just a minor complaint. It's not a really huge deal. It's still really fun. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, feel free to leave a like as well as subscribe to my channel for more GTA Online content. I also want to give a huge shout out to all my channel members for your support. If you'd like to become a member for some exclusive perks, you can either use the join button or the link that's down in the description. And as always, thanks for watching and have a great day.